Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now I still think the i5-12400F is a decent processor for the money. Sure, it's clear to see the limitations of this 6-core 12-thread chip, in particularly CPU intensive games and at lower resolutions, but if you're putting together a low-cost gaming build, then it's a solid choice. That said, I recently discovered a possible alternative, one that's very similar in name, yet far less abundant. I'm talking about the 12490F. I had planned on showcasing a full rare parts PC build, but the outdoor studio, otherwise known as outside, has been hit with a barrage of wind and rain. So today is more of a teaser, a quick look at what this thing is and what it can do. The 12490F has 2 extra megabytes of L3 cache than the 12400F, 20 compared to 18, as well as higher base and boost clocks, 3 and 4.6 GHz compared to 2.5 and 4.4, but both share the same 4 GHz all-core frequency. When it comes to support, some Socket 1700 board pages list it and some don't, and it's hard to tell if this is because of its China exclusivity, so some manufacturers haven't bothered adding it, or it's genuinely unsupported with some boards. I just can't imagine it would be if the 12400F or 12500 works, for example. As for performance, the 12490F pulls slightly ahead of the 12400F in Cinebench R23, but takes the same time to render a 60-second video in DaVinci Resolve. But what about gaming? As I said before, the 12490F has more L3 cache than the 12400F, but the all-core clocks are identical. One thing I did notice was that the 12490F seemed to use a little less power and ran a few degrees cooler. In terms of performance though, well, let's take a look. I tested with 32 gigs of 6400MHz DDR5 and a 4070 Super at 1080p to best highlight any differences. First of all, we have Cyberpunk 2077. With the 12490F, we saw 103 on average with a 1% low of 52 and a 0.1% low of 40. This is compared to 100, 50 and 39. So a slight boost in performance, at least in terms of that average, but things will get less noticeable, and if I didn't have the MSI Afterburner overlay enabled, and I wasn't talking about direct comparisons, you wouldn't actually notice. For Stalker 2, this is a rather CPU intensive game as well, and we went from 76 to 79 with the 12490F. The percentile lows were also improved slightly yet again, though this difference couldn't actually be felt when playing the game, and if you were using a lower end GPU or gaming at a higher resolution, then these performance gaps would be closed even more. The performance figures would be even closer together, that is. Flight Sim 2024, now we saw 68 frames per second on average with the 12490F. This was up from 63 on average with the 12400F, so a nice improvement here. This is still a 6-core 12-thread chip, however, so we are going to get the same dips and drops in terms of those percentile numbers. Therefore, the 1% low went from 40 to 43, but that 0.1% figure was 18 with both chips. Counter-Strike 2 saw an increase on the average figure to 225 from 218, a 1% low increase to 115 from 111. However, the percentile low, the 0.1% figure, actually dropped from 81 to 76. Counter-Strike 2 is probably more GPU intensive than its predecessor, that's for sure, but it does still like a nice snappy CPU in order to get the most from the performance. Now Red Dead Redemption 2, to finalise, this is probably more GPU intensive, hence why the gap between the two processors closed a little bit, 115 versus 116 for the average. The percentile lows were also very close, 77 compared to 78 for the 12490F, and then 55 compared to 53, so once again a slight dip in the 0.1% number for the 12490F this time around. Despite the slight increase in L3 cache and clock speeds, which do seem to help the 12490F in some scenarios, the fact is it's still a 6-core 12-thread chip, as I mentioned before, and by that I mean it has the same limitations as the 12400F. In particularly CPU-intensive gaming situations, we're going to see the same dips and drops to the percentile numbers. If you want one of these, then AliExpress is your best bet, though, unless you can find it for a very similar price to the 12400F, or you just really want one because it's rare in Western markets, then I'd stick to the tried, tested and abundant 12400F. It's always fun to check out these more uncommon products though, and I hope you enjoyed watching. But leave your thoughts down below in the comments, and as always, thanks for watching. I hope to see you next time.